Today on Meat and Heat, we are doing the best steak you can make at home. Dry brined, reverse seared ribeye. We start by wanting to build our fire. I like to use the Weber fire starter cubes. They're waxed and catch quick and they do the job perfectly. After your coals have started going and they're ashed over, put your wood. I like to use a little chunk of pecan as well as some mesquite chips. Mesquite goes great with red meat. And pecan kind of goes great with everything. Because it's a Kamado style cooker, we like to use a diffuser plate. Creates that indirect zone, and I throw my cast iron grates on there. I like to use canola oil on the grates because it creates a non-stick surface as well as seasons the cast iron. And we never like to cook without knowing the temperature, so I like to use a thermometer right at the grate level. So this steak has been dry brining in my fridge for 2 days now. What I mean is I cover it with sea salt on the top of the steak and I just put it on a plate and put it back in the fridge. What happens is the salt will pull the moisture from inside the steak out to the surface. And that moisture will then dissolve all the salt that's been sitting on the surface, creating a brine. And the meat absorbs this brine back into it to really develop a salty flavor throughout the entire steak, not just on a cut, not just on the crust. So to cook this steak, I don't really need to do much preparation. I rub a little bit with a binder of olive oil, then I just apply some pepper. I don't do any additional salting because the steak is going to come already flavored with salt throughout the entire thing. So I want to make sure that I cover the entire steak with pepper for flavor. So that's all sides, even this part. If you can with any cook, and if you're ever seasoning something, you really want to make sure you're covering everything. You don't need to really go that crazy with it, but just make sure you're seasoning the sides that need to be that you're gonna eat. It doesn't matter whether it's touching the fire or not. So even though I salted the one side in the dry brining process, I still want to make sure I'm seasoning all sides of the steak. So that's why you can see this part of the steak looks a little bit different than the other side, because the other side had the salt on the top of it. This was on the bottom where the plate was. So our cooker has come up to temp, and I like to cook between 225 and 250. And I put the steak directly in the center, right where I grease the grates. And I stick a thermometer in there because I'm looking for a specific temperature. I want to make sure I'm precise. Controlling your heat, knowing the temperature of your meat is the best way to get the best results. So after some time, my steak has now hit an internal temperature of 120 degrees, and that's where I like to pull it. So I wrap the steak between the sear. So I'll give it a good 10 minutes and I let it sit there, not super tight, while I bring my cooker up to sear heat. And I like to cook, or I like to sear my meat, my steaks, about 650. If your cooker can't get up to it, do as hot as you can. Remember, you're looking to make a crust as fast as possible without raising any of the temperature that much more. So the hotter it is, the shorter of time it is. That makes a better crust and less cooking throughout the entire piece. So now I've been resting for 10 minutes and we want to throw it back on the hot grates. But first, I like to spray these down with canola oil as well because I want to make sure that it doesn't stick to these hot grates and it actually cooks. Be very careful with Kamado style cookers because you do need to burp them, especially at high heats. If you open it too fast, it's going to create this rush of air and it will create a fireball. Be careful. So I'll place the steak down and I give it a good little press, but I don't want to squeeze it too hard. And I don't cook with the lid down because I'm not trying to cook the steak much more. I'm just trying to develop a sear. And just about the minute mark, I'll give it a quarter turn because I'd like to have nice grate marks on my steak. So after about 2 minutes on one side, I'll flip it. Then at the minute mark, I'll do that again where I turn it a quarter, and because I want to develop good grates, and I'll give it a little press. I want to make sure the meat is touching as much of the surface as it can. And you can see after 2 minutes, I have great grate marks right there. So here comes the patience part again. You gotta rest it one more time. I like to give it a not big, maybe 5 to 7 minute rest, and it'll be all worth it. This big fat 2-inch ribeye is now cooked. I am sitting perfectly at 135, just under, which is exactly where I want to be with my ribeyes. And I'll tell you, this steak cuts like butter, but it really helps to have a sharp knife. My Wusthof does the job excellently. And look at that, perfect, edge to edge, no gray meat, no degradation. It is medium rare all the way through. I really do appreciate you guys watching this. Please like, subscribe, share, and leave a comment if you want. And you can follow me on Instagram at Meat and Heat. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a great one.